This is Dead Serious, a show about short horror stories worthy of discussion. I'm Dead Pallid, and Night Prowler has sent me some bullshit that he wants me to read. This is an article written for Thought Catalog by Holly Riordan, and it is entitled, I found an old Polaroid of my parents that I think I should show the police. So this is on a clickbaity website. I don't know how to feel about this story, haven't read it yet. We're going to get right into it and see if this is a good creepypasta, or if it's just your run-of-the-mill clickbait bullshit. I stumbled through the door, half a bottle of vodka sloshing around on my stomach. Somehow I managed to make it past the living room, past the same photographs that had been hanging on the walls since I'd moved into the house, and into my cramped bathroom to remove my contacts. That's a little clumsily worded. But as I bent over the toilet, pushing back my glasses to keep them from plopping into the water, I realized something. Those pictures, I hung them myself, took some of them myself, looked at them every single day after work, or late nights at the bar, to remind myself of the family I rarely got to see. Late nights at the bar? How would you look at the photographs in your house while in the bar? Anyway, after wiping the vomit from my purple-painted lips, I retreated to the living room, just to prove that I had been seeing things, that the alcohol had been messing with my mind. Night Prowler, did you send something to troll me, fucking purple-painted lips? You're fucking with me, right? But no, when I looked at the 20-year-old family portrait, one of my mom, my dad, and me, I saw an extra face hovering in between my parents, a face that didn't belong there. He looked like he was around the same age as my dad, with the exact same red hair and overloaded of freckles. Okay. The same round glasses and the same suit, even their facial expression matched. They were completely identical. Fucking idiot. I must have been seeing double. I had saw 2 door handles on the way inside, and 2 toilet rolls in the bathroom. I drank half my body weight in liquor after all. What else should I expect? Without bothering to brush my teeth or slip out of my little red dress, I threw myself onto the couch. I needed sleep. So thus far I don't really like the narrator in the story. They're kind of a fucking twat. That could be a good thing. I hope that, obviously I believe deeply in having shitty narrators and our narrators being a bad person, but I get the suspicion that this is like a self-insert and not the way that I would interpret, that whole narrator versus author thing. I think our narrator is our author in this case, it's just really believable. But anyway, let's press on. The sun greeted me along with a headache, one big enough that no amount of Advil could cure it. It took all of the effort I had to pull myself into the hopes of making a cup of coffee that tasted as good as Mom used to make. But on my way out of the living room, I paused to look at the picture that spooked me last night. Or at least, I tried to look at the picture. The damn thing was gone. Missing from the frame. There was only plastic and an empty piece of cardboard stuffed inside. The rest of the photos were all intact. I had 15 of them covering the wall in a row of 5, and they were all right. No, one of them was different, but it was there, but different. It showed me and my cousins sitting around a tree of Christmas. We each had a present in our tiny hands, while all my aunts and uncles, who were standing behind us, held glasses of eggnog in their hands. But there was an extra face in the photo, a face that looked like my father's. My dad had been around when I was a baby, when we took the family portrait I loved so much. But he left us for a while, had a fling with some waitress when I was a toddler, and then came crawling back when I was in my teens. Okay, so this is giving us a little bit of background detail into our narrator. Hopefully, this bears fruit. So we don't necessarily have a reliable father in the home. No strong male role model that is informing the character that we've built so far, that is our narrator. I'm liking that. I didn't care how long ago that holiday photo was taken or how shoddy my memory was. That was not him. It couldn't have been. No way in hell. But I called my mom to make sure. I asked her if she had any contact with my dad during their break, and she went off about how she wouldn't have answered any of his calls, even if he would have bothered to make them. She went on and on about what an asshole he'd been for 20 minutes before I found an opening and told her I'd call her back some other time. They'd probably fought that night because of me. Okay, I like that. That's very endearing. But I would have rather heard their arguing than what I ended up hearing. When it was time to end my day with a bottle of wine that I could have sworn I hadn't opened but already had the cork removed, I heard the noises, creaking and squeaking and groaning. Instead of getting up to investigate, my wimpy ass just pulled the covers closer to my face and forced myself to sleep. In the morning, before I ate breakfast or even checked Facebook, I checked the wall of photographs. The picture from yesterday, the one from Christmas time, was missing, just an empty frame dangling from a hook. I slid my eyes over to the next photo in line. It was one of me as a preteen with my old terrier at the dog park. We were the only ones, just him with his tongue flopping out and me with my lips against his furry forehead. I thought it was done, that my mental lapse was over, but I leaned closer. There was actually more people, the size of pins, bustling around in the background, and right above my shoulder, standing in the grass with a Labrador, was my father. Okay, so this person who looks like their father keeps appearing in all of these photographs, and the next day the photographs have gone missing. That is interesting, but the question is, where is this building to? And does this have a finite way of concluding itself? Again, putting itself in the realm of possibility. Obviously, you can stretch the truth, but I want to have some understanding of the mechanics behind why these photographs have a father showing up in them and then the photographs disappearing. This time, I called him instead of Mom. I told him he was appearing in my photographs one by one, and he chuckled and made a dad joke about how he was seeing his face everywhere I went because of how badly I missed him. I don't know that that's a dad joke. And then there was another joke about how everyone must have been copying his style because of his incredible fashion sense. When I hung up with him, I felt better, believing his promises about the home being safe and that there must have been a rational explanation for everything. But those promises didn't stop the creaking and the squeaking and the groaning when I went to bed. I like how we use the phrase creaking and squeaking and groaning twice. It's like a Dr. Seuss book. It's repeating itself. I hope that there is a rational explanation for all of this. I hope that it's not just supernatural and nothing else. But let's press on. 2 weeks. 2 weeks after hearing eerie sounds on my way to bed. 2 weeks after finding my father's face in photographs one day and then finding the picture frame empty the next day. So that's sort of weird, this paragraph. We're skipping over all of the other instances of this happening, which seems to be the most interesting part of the story so far. That's a little bizarre, but maybe it's for pacing reasons. Let's see where this goes. I considered calling the police, but it would have sounded like a ghost story to them. No way they'd believe me. My friends didn't even believe me. I asked my BFF if I could crash at her place, or if she'd at least stay at my place to see for herself, but she refused. Told me to lay off the alcohol. Well, I was going to say they're not a very good BFF if they're not going to come over to your place or let you stay at theirs, but they're giving you some probably solid advice, some sage wisdom by laying off the alcohol. I did. Oh, good. You listened to your BFF. So when the very last picture disappeared, I had a panic attack in place of a tequila shot. This person drinks a lot of alcohol, so I don't know where they're getting this idea that alcohol can give you hallucinations. Alcohol is not that kind of drug. I felt like the wall was a calendar counting down my last days, and now they were all up. I I was so convinced that I would die that I actually thought about searching for more photos just so I could hang them up and buy myself more time. But what was I buying time from? That's an interesting way of thinking through the problem, just add more photographs. That's a clever idea, a desperate idea. The house didn't want to kill me. My father didn't want to kill me. There must have been a reasonable explanation, but I found none. I don't know why we're assuming that, I don't know why our narrator's assuming that they would die. Maybe something ominous would happen, that they would be in danger, sure, but die seems like a leap. That's a little weird. Let me know what you think. Is it weird? What evidence do we have that there's going to be a death going on, besides the fact that that's the kind of thing that happens in scary stories? Let me know what you think in the comments. That night, when the walls were empty, for the very first time, I heard something different than the usual creaks and squeaks and groans. I heard footsteps, faint ones, leading to my room. And then a door. Then I heard a door. I was giving a good delivery there, and I fucked it up, Brandon. Goddamn. Dad, I whispered. But it couldn't have been him. He was a planner. He would have called me up weeks ahead of time, asked me for help booking his flight, and then asked me to pick him up at the airport. Even if he wanted to surprise me, show up out of the blue, he would have knocked like a normal human being. And not that I believe in the supernatural, but it's not like he was dead, dying, or even sick with a cold, so it must have been a ghost. But I saw a face smiling in a slit of light my curtains let in, and it was his face, paler and thinner, much, much thinner. But it was him. He moved closer with small, tight steps, and all I could do was strengthen my grip on my blanket. I'd snuck a knife under my pillow when the picture fiasco started, but I couldn't find the courage to reach for it. I could only stare. And when he dropped something onto me, I flinched. My imagination tricked me into thinking they were maggots or guts or razor blades. The worse, the more believable. But when I peeked my eyes open, I realized it was only my photos. I edited them, he said, his voice sounding strained, like a deaf man who paused at the wrong moments. I didn't know how to tell you I was there. I didn't want to scare you. I wanted to give you hints. You always liked hints whenever we would play. I didn't know if I could speak, but I wanted to try. Do you really think I left you? He was on the edge of my bed now, reaching to brush a strand of hair out of my face. I flinched, one eye opened and the other closed. That man, he continued, the one you spoke to on the phone a few days ago, the one who came back for your mother, the one that raised you, that wasn't me. I'm your real father. Yeah, I rasped out, finally finding the strength to reach under my pillow and paw for the knife handle. He nodded. I was kidnapped by him. He popped out of the back seat of my car as I was driving home to you 18 years ago, and he kept me locked up. Hardly any food, zero social interaction, for decades. He said he was my twin, but I don't have a twin. I know I don't have a twin. My fingers brushed up against the blade, sliced my pinky. Alright, so the story's almost over, and I need to know how we're getting this doppelganger person. That needs to be justified, and we were never given any information about a father liking to leave clues for their daughter. That's coming out of nowhere. That's so out of left field. It's very bizarre. I have a good way of describing my problem with this story, and I haven't finished with it, but I can already see that this is going to be a problem. If you've ever seen the movie Old Boy is a movie about a guy who gets locked up in a hotel kind of room for 15 years, I believe, and then he's released, and he goes out to seek revenge, and then very early in the movie, it's explained why there was this hotel prison sort of deal. And the interesting thing about the movie was the premise of, like, the mystery, the thrill of, like, why was he locked up in this hotel room for so long, right? And so then the movie continues to focus on other less interesting thriller aspects. The interesting thing here is the doppelganger. And so the thrill of it is explaining the doppelganger. But I don't think that we're going to get that. I think that this story is just using doppelgangers because it's convenient. I don't know. It just kind of rings hollow. But continuing on. I don't know where he came from, what created him, but he stole everything. He stole my life, and no one even noticed. My fingers finally curled around the knife handle. I slid it out, as slowly as I could to keep from him noticing, but the noises stopped me. Creaking, squeaking, groaning. I was looking right at him, as my supposed birth father. He wasn't the one making the noises. At least, not those. Oh no, he said. No. Before I could speak or move or breathe, I heard the door again. A woman walked through this time. My age, my height, my weight, my hair, my smile, my everything. She looked just like me, like my twin. Okay, so that's not a terribly bad ending. And maybe this was just my desires for what I want out of a story, but this doesn't do it for me. It's more of the weird fiction kind of stuff. It's not really realistic, and what could be the most interesting part of the story is not explained, which is the twins. What purpose do they have? Why are they doing this? How did the dad escape? I have a lot of unanswered questions, and I don't feel like, given enough time, I could come to some sort of conclusion on these things. The arc of the story doesn't explain anything about the mystery. It doesn't give us a mystery to really solve. But it says here our author is an aspiring science fiction author. I can see that. I can see that this is much more down those lines. Kind of blurring the lines between mediums and really focusing more on grounding the science fiction. This story doesn't do it for me. If it does it for you out there, that's great. Let me know in the comments, but I don't think that this is a creepypasta. I think that it's a mediocre story on a really shitty website. But we do have a sponsor today. Our sponsor is brought to you by Talos. He connected me to this sponsor. Today's episode was brought to you by loneliness. Never stay home without it.